From the wrestling ring to the octagon, to playing in the NFL and then making it to the UFC, these stars brought their skills and discipline from their previous sports. Here are some of the most notable UFC fighters who used to play in other sports. Starting off with a name we remember from both of his sports, Brock Lesnar, whose journey to the UFC was far from conventional. Before he became a heavyweight champion in mixed martial arts, he was already a superstar in the scripted world of professional wrestling. But even before that, he was a Division I NCAA wrestling champion. His impressive grappling skills and sheer size made him a force to be reckoned with. But he was hungry for more. That hunger led Lesnar to pursue a career in MMA, to truly test his mettle against other top-tier athletes. It didn't take long for him to make an impact in the UFC either, winning the heavyweight title in just his fourth fight. He even defended the title twice before being forced to retire due to health issues.
To get acclimated. Words can't describe it. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much.
Despite his short-lived UFC career, Lesnar's impact on the sport is still felt to this day. His transition from the world of professional wrestling to mixed martial arts was groundbreaking, and it opened the door for other athletes from non-traditional backgrounds to make their mark in the sport. But Lesnar is far from the only wrestler to eventually make his way to the octagon, as it was a similar story with Daniel Cormier. Before he became a UFC legend, Cormier was already a powerhouse in the world of wrestling.
Brutality, but everyone thought that you would be cheering on Seth Rollins, and you had some words.
In fact, he represented the United States in the 2004 Olympics as part of the wrestling team. Talk about an impressive resume. But Cormier's success didn't stop there. He also won not one, but 2 gold medals in the Pan American Games. So it's safe to say that he knew a thing or two about taking opponents down and controlling them on the mat. That same skill set would serve Cormier well when he transitioned to the UFC. His wrestling background allowed him to dominate opponents in the octagon, earning him victories and respect from fans and fellow fighters alike. Cormier's dominance was so great that he was able to win not just 1, but 2 UFC championships. He even held the light heavyweight and heavyweight titles at the same time, a feat that few fighters have ever accomplished. But what makes Cormier truly special is his personality. He's always been a fun-loving guy with a great sense of humor, and that's made him a fan favorite over the years. Whether he's cracking jokes during interviews or busting out his signature dad dance moves, Cormier never failed to put a smile on fans' faces. But it's not all wrestlers on this list. Even other forms of combat sports translate over to the world of MMA. Case in point, Ronda Rousey. Before she became a household name in the UFC, Rousey was already a force to be reckoned with in the world of judo. In fact, she won a bronze medal in the 2008 Olympic Games. But that was just the beginning of Rousey's dominance in combat sports. She was also a 6-time USA Judo national champion, showcasing her incredible skill and dedication to her craft. It's no surprise that Rousey's judo background would come in handy when she transitioned to the UFC. Her grappling skills were top-notch, using them to dominate opponents in the octagon. In fact, Rousey became one of the most dominant fighters in UFC history, winning the women's bantamweight championship and even defending it multiple times, solidifying her place as a true superstar in the sport. Rousey was a true trailblazer for women in combat sports, and her impact on the UFC is still felt to this day. Whether she was throwing opponents in the judo ring or submitting them in the octagon, she always brought her A game. But of course, you can't talk about Rousey without mentioning the person who overthrew her, namely Holly Holm. Before she became a UFC champion, Holly Holm was already a boxing superstar. In fact, she was a 19-time world champion boxer and held titles in not just 1, but 3 different weight classes. Talk about a diverse portfolio. Holm's boxing background translated well to the UFC, and her striking skills quickly became a force to be reckoned with. But what really put her on the map was her unforgettable victory over Rousey, one of the biggest upsets in the history of the sport. Many thought she was unbeatable, but Holm proved them wrong, delivering a devastating head kick that knocked out the former champion. It was a moment that will go down in UFC history, and it cemented Holm's place as one of the best strikers in the sport. But Holm's success wasn't just due to her boxing skills. She was also a fierce competitor with a never-give-up attitude, and she always put on exciting fights for the fans. Despite some ups and downs in her storied career, Holm still remains one of the most respected fighters in the sport.
Do you have a name that you want next?
No, just whatever they hand me, you know.
Moving on, though, sometimes you don't even need to have a history in combat sports to get involved in the world of MMA. Take Matt Mitrione, for example. Before he was knocking out opponents in the UFC, Mitrione was making plays on the football field. That's right, the heavy hitter used to play in the NFL for both the New York Giants and the Minnesota Vikings, showcasing his incredible athleticism and toughness on the gridiron. But when Mitrione turned to mixed martial arts, he found that those same skills translated well to the octagon. He quickly established himself as a force to be reckoned with in the UFC's heavyweight division, using his speed and agility to outmaneuver opponents and land devastating strikes. Of course, it wasn't just Mitrione's football background that made him a successful fighter. He also had a natural talent for combat sports, putting in countless hours of training to hone his skills and become the best fighter he could be. But there's no denying that Mitrione's football roots gave him an edge in the UFC. He was used to taking hits and bouncing back from injuries, which made him all the more resilient in the octagon. And his quick reflexes and lightning-fast footwork were a testament to the countless hours he spent perfecting his craft. Lastly, you can't talk about athletes who turn to MMA without mentioning Herschel Walker. He's a man of many talents, with a sporting career that's nothing short of impressive. Walker's mostly known for his time as a football player for the Dallas Cowboys. But did you know he also tried his hand at bobsledding?
And pull this off.
Well, age has always been a number for me. I've always learned that if you got a job to do, you get out and do it. Doesn't matter what age.
That's right. The former UFC star and NFL player once competed in the two-man bobsled event at the 1992 Winter Olympics in Albertville, France. Now, I know you might be wondering how something like that even happens. Well, it's a long story, but the short version is that Walker has always been up for a challenge. After his football career, he decided to take on the sport despite having no prior experience in it. But as a true athlete, he quickly adapted to the new sport and made history. Although his sledding career was short-lived, it was a significant accomplishment because he was the first black athlete to compete in it in the Olympics. That's right, Walker didn't just break records in football, he broke barriers in bobsledding too. And who knows, if he had stuck with the sport, he might have even won a medal or two. But hey, that's all for the UFC stars who started off their professional careers in other sports.